Robert, are you coming to town for the big state fair on the Mall? We've got a Ferris wheel here, We thought maybe this might bring you to Washington finally.
Sorry, I don't think I'm going to make that particular event, although I would like to see the condition of the reflecting pool.
Yeah, well, we have an update on the reflecting pool. We'll get to that before the end of the hour. Robert, is John Bolton going to prison?
He very possibly could. This is going to be purely up to the judge, and it will depend on his calculation of the federal sentencing guidelines. I would guess that calculation will show that he possibly will get 18 to 24 months. He has no prior criminal history, so that's relevant. The statute, in case your viewers want to look it up, is 18 U.S.C. 3553, which is what a federal judge uses, the factors to determine a sentence. And Bolton can point to a long career of public service as mitigation against time in prison, and the fact that possibly nobody was really hurt by this document leak. But that being said, the judge certainly has the discretion to give him anything from 5 years or less, and perhaps more if he calculates more. I doubt it would be anything more than 5 years, but it could. He could be doing some months in prison.
So he's ultimately likely to serve some kind of punishment for illegally handling classified material. What's different then between John Bolton and President Trump, who kept documents at Mar-a-Lago, or even former President Biden, who had documents in his garage?
Yeah, that therein lies the key question. What is different is the incredible volume of difference. John Bolton took some things and emailed some family members and a few things like that. Now, he shouldn't have done it. It violated the statute, and he recognizes that if he goes to trial, he was going to lose on several counts. So you're talking a relatively few files here, right? What you're dealing with Mar-a-Lago and what was then former President Trump are boxes and boxes of classified materials, which could be really calculate up to a huge sentence. And frankly, if you look at the complication of prosecuting John Bolton, they had to go through his emails, do some discovery. What they would do with Donald Trump, in this case was all queued up, is basically say, look, here's the documents, here's one in his stage, here's one in his bathroom, here's another one in his bathroom. Really, the evidence against who was then Donald Trump, former president, number 45, as opposed to current Donald Trump, 47, was pretty damning and pretty compelling. You also mentioned the question about the Biden situation. The Biden documents were, again, very narrow, and it was pretty clear it was a mistake. And so they did a thorough investigation and realized, well, there really wasn't a basis to charge him with a crime because it was unintentional. And he just took it over as former vice president. So all those cases are very distinguishable from the much, well, based on the evidence, the much higher culpability of Donald Trump.
Wow, really something. Imagine sharing a cell with John Bolton, the stories at night. Robert, where would he go? What kind of prison are we talking about here? He's not wearing black and white stripes and busting rocks, I'm guessing.
There are various security levels. Generally, there's 5 different security levels, and the Bureau of Prisons has changed that from time to time. He would generally go to what would be called a federal camp, and often in those federal camps, the actual wall is like a fence that's about 4 feet high. So it's fairly good. But I will remind you one thing. Todd Blanche has just rewritten the Bureau of Prison designation policies and has taken unto himself the power to designate any inmate to go to any place that he chooses to send them. And this is frightening because this has never happened before. So he could actually, in his own discretion, according to the rules he just wrote for the Department of Justice, send John Bolton to some place like Leavenworth or Marion, which are the highest security classifications, versus a relatively low security in the camp, just as he did with Ms. Maxwell, giving her a less serious classification and a lower incarceration. So really, this is a level of discretion. And given Blanche's boss, who's blindly loyal to, which is Donald Trump, desire to go after enemies, John Bolton could be looking at a classification far in excess of what he could expect, and a life in prison that would be very bad. In fact, if I was his defense lawyer, I would argue that to the judge, at the whim of the Attorney General, or in this case, acting Attorney General, John Bolton could be unduly punished far in excess of what he would deserve given his history in the service.
Wow, it's incredible to consider, and we will ultimately look toward the sentencing there to get some clarity on this. While we have you, Robert, I'd also like to ask you about the decisions we've gotten from the Supreme Court this week, and frankly would love to hear from you on the decisions we have yet to get, like birthright citizenship and the Lisa Cook case. But on the decisions we got yesterday, most of them split exactly on ideological lines, including the two cases that ruled essentially in favor of the administration's immigration policies, allowing the ending of or the potential deportations of hundreds of thousands of individuals coming from crisis countries, stopping asylum seekers at the border as well. What do you make of the rulings? Are you surprised by them, or does, as the justices in the majority ruled, the president does have leeway here?
Well, I'm not surprised by them, and I will say I'm sadly not surprised by these because the justices have been very pro-Trump on this. And frankly, if you look at these same justices who did things to hem in presidential power when Joe Biden was president, they're taking a very different tune now. What literally this means is that we are sending people back to their deaths. The State Department has an advisal that, American citizens should not travel to Haiti, and yet we're going to send these people back to Haiti where they will be killed. And they've done a little sleight of hand as well. In another case, they said that, well, when a person seeks asylum, they come to a border official, and we can block them from stepping into the United States, which means United States law does not apply, international law does not apply, the Refugee Act of 1980 doesn't apply, and we can just go ahead as a matter of discretion, not even bother to hear an asylum case with just total discretion because U.S. law doesn't apply to them until their foot hits U.S. soil, and we're going to prevent that from happening. Well, all the Jewish persons in World War II who sought to come to the United States would never have been allowed in under that. And what we've done here is just appalling. And frankly, the people seeking political asylum have a very, very low criminality rate. They come here, they're following the rules, and this is a way to just shut it down in order to try to, I'm not sure what, jack up deportation numbers, look like you're tough on crime in the border, and it does none of that. But that's what the justices have said the president has the power to do.
It's something, too, that the economic impact of this could be very real, knowing how many Haitians work in our hospitals and nursing homes, which is interesting to hear politicians tell them to get the hell out of our country. Robert, how do you get 350,000 Haitians and 7,000 Syrians out of the country? Are these going to be on government airplanes, or do they have to see themselves out?
Well, they're presumably going to go chase them down, but now you're going to spend all your time chasing after persons who have a legal status, which you're now revoking. So it's not like they are undocumented. They actually have a status. And you're going to waste all your time chasing after the most law-abiding persons within our midst who want to work in our hospitals and nursing homes. And the economic impact, as you just showed, is going to be huge. And these are the people that you want in America, not the people you want to get rid of.
Well, as we consider the people in America, there's also a looming question about the status of people who are born in this country and birthright citizenship, which, of course, the president would like to revoke for people who are born to people who are not here legally. The court is clearly saving this one till the very end, as they often do in their summer term with some of these higher profile cases, this and the Lisa Cook case. Should this, in your mind, have been one that requires so much deliberation? It seemed like when the president pursued this initially, it was pretty cut and dry. Almost every law expert we spoke to said, no, that's in the Constitution.
Absolutely. This is one of these things where we're going to drop the opinion and get out of Dodge fast. I mean, look, the precedent is a case called Wong Kim Ark from 1898, which said that, no, if you're born in this country, you are a citizen. The 14th Amendment says it. And in fact, the common law of the United States before the 14th Amendment said that as well. It was called jus soli. You're born on the soil. And also jus sanguinis, born of the blood of an American citizen. So this has always been established law. My prediction for this is that the court is going to uphold the law and the 14th Amendment. You may get what I would call an embarrassing dissent from Justices Alito and Thomas. And if they do so, I think they will embarrass themselves because the law is very clear. The history is very clear on this. And, so that's and then the administration is going to, talk about all kinds of how terrible these justices are, how they don't love America and all that kind of thing. So that would be my prediction. I predict that the Chief Justice will write this opinion. Perhaps Justice Gorsuch will. And that's the way that it's going to come out. And Donald Trump will now run against the Supreme Court, like he likes to try to do, and somehow say this is destroying America. They made arguments that are really kind of spurious in front of the Supreme Court, that somehow it doesn't apply to everybody, just applied to black people after the Civil War. I got to tell you, all the guys who fought in the Irish Brigade at the Battle of Gettysburg, they knew their children were going to be citizens of the United States. And those people were the ones who wrote the 14th Amendment in Congress. And I think the historical record is clear. I think it was embarrassing for the court to even accept the case. The law was so clear on that. But, I've been wrong before.